Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Common Ground Alaska show. I'm so glad you've decided to join this. I'm your host, Tandy Hogate. And today I have Don Dyer with me from Polaris Poultry. And let me tell you, I have heard Don I heard him speak at an event. We were both speakers at an event 2 Christmases ago or Decembers ago. And it was a joy listening to him talk about chickens because not only does he obviously have knowledge, but he obviously has a passion for not just chickens, but poultry in general. So he has agreed to talk to us today on our show about raising egg laying hens primarily. And so we're just going to dig in deep because, as you know, this is a teaching podcast. And so we want you to learn as much as you can. The goal would be if you're a first time, whether you're getting chicks for the first time this year for eggs, or if you're been doing it for a while and you kind of need a refresher, Don's going to answer those questions. So thank you very much, Don, for agreeing to be on our podcast today.
Sure, you're welcome. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, it's good to have you. All right. So let's just dig right in. First, tell us about Polaris Poultry. What do you offer your customers?
So we actually changed the name. We updated to Polaris Hatchery.
Ooh, sorry about that.
No, that's okay. And so that's we went with Polaris Hatchery at the end of 2022. Excuse me. And because we are offering some hatched chicks that are true Alaska grown chicks, and we will have just a few of those this spring. They're not on the website yet, but they will be once they start hatching and we start knowing that we have successful hatches going, because we're new at that. But we do we're, if not the single largest, we're one of the largest importers of baby chicks to Alaska, and this is now our 5th season. And we're very, very grateful to all of our loyal customers that have believed in us and purchased our product. And I'm so thankful for all the love that we get from our customers, and hopefully they feel love back from us.
Well, I know that education is key, and I know that you've always been good at educating your customers. It's not just a handoff. Here's some chicks, see you bye.
Right.
And I think that's much appreciated because although it seems simple, just getting a couple chicks, turning them into raising them up to chickens, gathering their eggs, how hard could it be? There's a lot more to it than that.
Yeah, there is, and it's not as hard as some people think it is, but definitely there's a few details that if you don't have right, things can go wrong real fast for you.
That's so true. That's so true. So let's just dig right in. So the first question that I have for you is, how should a person go about choosing chicks if they're looking specifically for laying hens? What are some of your favorite breeds, and what are some things to look for?
That's a great question. And there's a lot of debate about that going on, especially here in Alaska because of our climate. And what makes a cold hardy chicken, and what makes a good off-grid chicken, and what makes a good free range chicken, and what are the economics of raising chickens. And so I'm and this is one of the things I've decided this year to do on our website is given an awareness to the consumer of the difference between a production breed and a regular breed. And for instance, I can have 2 Rhode Island Reds, and they can look almost identical, but one is a production red and one is a regular red. And the production red will have been selectively bred just for high egg production. Okay. And so the production red, when they hit that, Rhode Island Red start laying at about 22 to 24 weeks of age. The production red will lay for about 75 to 80 weeks at a real high rate. So something like 6 eggs per week, 6, 7 eggs per week, and then it'll drop off pretty rapidly. For a non-production red, will actually, they might lay 5 eggs a week, but then they'll do it for 4 or 5 years sometimes. If you take really good care of them. And so it depends a lot on what your goals are. Do you want to have chickens that are going to last a long time and give you less return on your feed investment and your investment in chicks up front, or are you looking for something that you're going to do as an enterprise and actually make money? The other thing that we offer with production chickens are, our superstar layer is the NovaGen, and the NovaGens are they will lay 320 eggs a year, sometimes more than 1 egg a day, and they're an amazing chicken. The one nice thing about the NovaGen is they have their body is a 3/4 size body, so they actually eat about 25 to 30% less than full-size chickens like Rhode Island Reds and Barred Rocks and things like that. And so, but you get more eggs from them, and so they're a very, very efficient layer that way. They're also very cold hardy, and they're very good natured, and so very easy to manage birds, and you get a strong return on your investment with them. But again, when they hit about 75 to 80 weeks, that's when they start to slow down on their laying. And so you generally want to cycle them out, not keep them any more than about till they're about 3 years of age, and then cycle them out for new ones. But the production breeds, because of their genetics and crossbreeding, sometimes when you breed those together, they don't always breed true. You'll end up with some kind of other chicken, and you could take a Rhode Island Red father and a Rhode Island Red mother, breed both of them together, and then you can get something else, and because some of those recessive genes will manifest themselves. Whereas we also offer just the standard, say Rhode Island Red, and you can breed them all day long and always get a Rhode Island Red. So it just depends on what your goals are. And then we have approximately, I think, 18 or 20 different layer varieties of both production and non-production. Then we have the meat birds, and we have the fast growing Cornish cross. We have the somewhat slower but very fast growing Freedom Rangers and Red Rangers. And then we also are offering this year a breed that's new to Alaska. We trialed it last year, and it's called a Sasso, Sasso. And that is that was brought to the U.S. There was a single breeder that in the eastern Northeast that got a license for it. It's a European breed, and it has a unique meat quality and very, very good to eat, very yellow skin, and they're a beautiful bird to boot. And so anyway, I'm sure we're the first ones in Alaska to have that, and we'll be offering that this year as well. Then their growth rate is comparable to a Freedom Ranger. And then we also offer turkeys. And so you can get turkey poults from us, and we offer 3 varieties. They're all the broad-breasted varieties, and we offer the white, the bronze, and the black. And then we offer pullets as well. 16-week old pullets will be available in April and in September. And if people want them a little early or a little later, that's fine. It's a flexible pickup schedule. And but if you want to skip the whole baby phase and just have something that's going to be laying eggs, within a week or two or right out of the chute, we offer pullets as well. So that's those are our product lines. And then we're also offering this year, we'll be offering feed, and then all of the other things that go with chickens, the waters, the feeders, the medicines, the you name it, all kinds of other equipment in that. We're also becoming a dealer for Featherman equipment, which is the processing equipment for people who want to do that. And because of our shipping relationships, we're able to save people a lot of money on shipping. If anybody is priced, buying equipment from the lower 48 and then having it shipped up here, it takes 3 or 4 weeks to go by truck and then barge, and then it virtually doubles the price of the equipment. We're able to save you the time and the money because we get it inside of a week, and for much less than the traditional shipping is.
Well, that's super helpful. I know that'll be much appreciated. And to have a one-stop shop kind of place is always nice too. And plus, again, it's not like shopping at a big box where you just have to stand there, and especially the medications, kind of look at it, read the box, does this sound like what's going on with my chicken? To have someone who has some knowledge. So I just want to circle back to the original question though, and just say, let's break it down a little bit more. So if a person is not looking for production, if they're just looking for, a couple backyard chickens for fun layers so their kids are raised around chickens and they can provide fresh eggs for their family, what are maybe 2 or 3 varieties? I realize you sell several and there's benefits to all of them, but do you have a couple that you recommend? So, okay, let me actually narrow that question down a little more. We have a Novagen who I love. She is the sweetest chicken. Oh my goodness. She just loves her people, and she's still laying, and she's 3. So she's probably getting close to the end, but she will not step foot out in the snow. She never has. I don't think her feet have ever stepped in snow. Whereas we have Rhode Island Reds that are there. If they can get outside, they'll go outside all winter long and be out there and just kind of, so those are 2 kind of, I just thought that she was just temperamental until I was reading about them, and I realized that's pretty common for the Novagens to stay inside. They want to be in their coop, and when the weather gets nice, then they'll go out.
Yeah. Novagens think that snow is something like hot lava.
Agreed.
There's a hard line right there at the door, and the Novagens will never go past it, and everybody else just walks out. And the color pack, I don't know if you have any color packs in your flock, but they're super cold hardy birds, and they lay those blue eggs. And and they're just as happy in the snow as they are inside. And I actually had a couple of them get loose and decide to live in my barn this summer, and I just didn't get around to picking them up and putting them with all the other chickens until it was late December, and they were just as happy as could be and were laying eggs in the barn. And I always had to run and grab them before they would freeze, but anyway, I eventually put them inside just so I wouldn't have to manage chickens in 2 places. But let me back up one thing. One of the big values that we offer our customers is that you can call me on the phone, and I answer the phone. And though I have business hours, I still answer texts and phone calls most all of the time. And you can't get that from the other hatcheries. A lot of times they're just they send your chicks out USPS and good luck.
Yeah.
But people call me all the time with behavior issues and health issues and all that kind of stuff, and how to set up and manage things. And it's amazing. I learn so much from my customers too, because we all get to talking, and it becomes this knowledge base that we build. And it's a great thing to have a community of people that actually are communicating about local poultry issues.
Sure. That's good. That's super helpful. Okay. So, how would a person then go about ordering chicks?
Sure. The easiest way is just to go on the website at polarishatchery.com and order your chicks there. If there's any question, or if something seems confusing, you can call me or text me at 907-373-2442. It's 373 chick. So CHIC. And I'll answer your call or your text. It's best to use SMS texting with me, because I only check the Facebook and Instagram maybe once a day or twice a day sometimes. But if you want fast answers, texting me or calling me is the best way.
Okay. And so when a person calls you, they can kind of tell you what their goals are, and you might have chick recommendations then.
Yes.
Okay. And when do you typically start? What time of year do you typically start seeing people start beginning to get chicks? And what is the latest that a person might want to order chicks?
Well, we start taking orders on November 1st, but definitely after January 1st. Right now, so far here we are on, what is it, the 17th of January, and I've got 4 times as many orders as I did in November and December. So, there's a lot more volume coming in right now. So definitely you want to make your reservations. Some varieties are already sold out, and some varieties I can still go back to the hatchery and get more of. And so if somebody finds that a variety is on a particular date is sold out, just send me a text message, and I can usually update my purchase order right away with that hatchery, and get more put on my purchase order if
Okay.
they're not already.
Okay.
And then we stop deliveries. Our first delivery happens on March 6th this year. And then our last delivery will be the last Wednesday in June, whatever that date is.
Oh, okay. All right. Sounds good. And so let's say we're getting chicks someone's getting chicks for the very first time. What should they do to prepare for their arrival?
And that's a great question, and we're addressing that this year by putting together kits for people. And it's not a one size fits all kit. It's, there's people like, say, in Anchorage that live in a place that's zoned for just 6 female chickens. Well, we have a small kit for that. And then we have, the medium sized kit, which is like a 25 chicken thing. And then, we can put together larger kits for people who want to do 50 or 100 or more chicks. But your basic items are, a box of some sort, and I use the plastic. If it's just going to be, if it's someone who's going to be getting 5 or 6 chicks, we just use one of those plastic totes like you would get at Fred Meyer or Walmart. And then you have a heat source, so either a heat lamp or one of the heat plates to go in there. And then you need a waterer, and you need a feeder, and then you need wood shavings to go on the bottom. And that's the basic kit that you need for doing your baby chicks.
Oh.
And then
It's pretty simple. One thing, the first year we got them years and years ago, we thought we had everything, but we didn't have a thermometer. And so I Googled, and there wasn't a lot of information online because we've been doing chickens for a long time, but it gave a really neat illustration. It just said, if your chicks are all huddled under the light, then it's too cold. And if they're spread out from the light, or if they're all laying on their side panting and nobody wants anywhere near the light, then you've got it a little warm. So, and that's been a really good visual for us, even especially if you're watching them on cameras or whatever, if they're not right in your house, and you can keep a good eye on them and make sure that they're staying warm enough without being too warm.
Right. The baby chicks, it's not like baking a cake where you have a thermometer and it's a certain temperature at 99.5 or 95 or any of that, you watch their body language, because that's what's really going to tell you what's going on. Now, an interesting tip is that baby chicks and chickens in general, no matter what their age, they sense the temperature of their environment through their feet. And so if you have your brooder set on, say, a wood floor or a concrete floor, even worse, there's going to be it's going to pull heat from that brooder, and their feet are going to be cold. And so your thermometer, if you had a thermometer in there, it could say 95, but your chicks are still going to be all clustered up under the light. And people call me and say, why is this? And I tell them, I say, stick your finger down through that cluster of chicks that are all clustered, and on top it feels warm, but when you stick your finger down to where their feet are, it's cold. And if you pick a baby chick up and put it in the palm of your hand, its feet are cold, even though it says 95 on the thermometer. And it's because what's underneath the box is cold. And so you have to either put 2 or 3 layers of cardboard, or better yet, get a piece of styrofoam or foam board insulation, put that under it, and boom, the problem goes away.
That's a good tip. One tip that we were given last year that we tried, when we started raising meat chickens, we now raise enough meat chickens for our family plus for our son, and so we raised quite a few. And we started with Cornish. I realize this is an egg chicken, but this relates, I promise. So, but we started with Cornish cross, which are kind of notorious for leg problems anyway. So, but we would just always put down some kind of shavings or something. And someone mentioned that they just put, for the first 3 or 4 days after the chicks come home, they just put down puppy pads. And so that's what we did. But last year also we had Freedom Rangers for the first time, which are a far superior bird, if anyone wants my opinion for meat birds. And we had, not only did we not have one single leg issue, our whole mortality rate with the Cornish cross, we'd lose, we'd get 100 at a time, and we might lose like 3 or 4 or 5, and we didn't lose a single one and no leg issues, nothing, from just having that flat surface for the first couple days. And I guess my assumption is the reason is because it kind of helps them strengthen their legs and kind of get their feet underneath them and learn to walk and not wobble. And but I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yes. So if you were to go to my website, on the upper right of the website page, there's a FAQ and chick care area, and that gives detailed instructions on how to set up your brooder and take care of your baby chicks for that first 6 weeks. And I tell people, if you'll follow those instructions to the letter, that you'll have 100% success. And I can confidently say, if you get your chicks from me, whether it's meat birds, Cornish cross, anything like that, and unless there's a congenital defect, which happens now and then with chicks, it just happens. But barring a defective chick, you'll have 0 mortality if you'll follow those instructions. And what I do in those instructions is I have you, on top of the wood shavings, I have you put a layer of paper towels, pure white paper towels, and then sprinkle the feed on top of those paper towels. Don't put a feeder in there, and that way everybody gets an equal shot at the food. And go for about 48 hours with just those paper towels in there. So that way they learn to identify the food, number one. Number two, they don't accidentally eat some of the litter, which they'll do that. And and so they learn what food is, they learn to not eat litter. And then what's nice is you just roll up those paper towels or puppy pads or any of that, and you've got nice fresh clean litter that you can fluff up, and it's easy to clean up. And actually I use the commercial brooders, which for by made by Brower, which are the big metal box type things that have the heaters and the waters and all that stuff built in for growing my birds in larger quantities. And I put those paper towels down on the grate in there, and I leave them there for actually several days, so that way they don't have problems with their toes getting caught or other things like that. And then it all stays nice and dry because the heater dries those paper towels. So when I take it out, it all just comes out like a big wafer, and it's really nice and clean and no smell and all that. The other the thing to recognize with your Cornish cross and to an extent your Freedom Rangers and Red Rockets and Sassos, they will double their weight in 24 hours. So, assuming you got the food and water there for them, they will double their size. And then within 4 to 5 days, they will double their size again. And
Wow.
so their rate is a lot more. Where it takes, say, a Novagen, it'll take a Novagen 3 to 4 days to double its weight, when they're brand new. And
So that would kind of
so
explain the leg issues then with the meat birds, is just because they're putting on weight so fast. So it's not as much of a concern for an egg production bird.
not at all, not at all with them. And the other thing is you'll find the leg issues happen mostly after 10 days. And so with Cornish cross, and so what I do with Cornish cross is after 10 days, 10 to 14 days, right in there, they go on the schedule of feed, 12 hours on with feed and 12 hours off of feed.
Oh,
And so that way they have time to digest and let all that get into their bodies and build up their bones and let their bones catch up and let their other organs catch up, because they will literally eat themselves to death if you let them.
yeah. Yeah.
They will park next to the feeder and just eat and eat and eat, and then get up, go get water, and then sit there and eat again. So you've got to, with Cornish cross, you've got to manage their feed intake that way. And in fact, I limit the light during that 12 hours that they're off feed. I limit their light. I don't put them in total darkness, but I limit their light, and they always have plenty of water. So that way they sleep and they can digest and all that, because they're an amazing bird. Some people speak about them in a derogatory way, but just in the efficiency of how they turn their feed into protein, they're a real marvel of nature. And but they will literally out eat their heart and their other organs and put on so much muscle, but their heart can't keep up with it.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. They're quick growers, that's for sure. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So,
And the biggest problems come after about 6 weeks. So if you're keeping them, that's when you start to see a few problems arise. Definitely after 8 weeks, people who are growing Cornish cross out to be these 12 to 15 pound things that are 10 to 12 weeks old, that's not what a Cornish cross is designed to do. And so you need to harvest them earlier than that.
sure, that makes sense. So back to brooders, because I want to make sure that I want to kind of make sure we get through all of the questions.
Sure.
How would a person choose their chick arrival date?
So that's that's at your convenience. We deliver chicks every week, every Wednesday, and and we have our 4 or 5 pickup points, and you get a text 3 days ahead of time reminding you. And so you can just pick the calendar of when you want to do it with your family, and pick that date, and then go on and order your chicks on that date.
So there are some things to consider. For instance, well, I mean, it is convenience related, right? So we don't actually get our chicks until June 1st because we have a lot going on in the spring on the farm. So it just, I don't have time to deal with them until the 1st of June. So
Right.
the other advantage that we have by getting, this is for our meat birds, the other advantage that we have and getting them a little later is that the weather's warmer, so they are able to move outside a lot sooner than, they're able to withstand some weather a lot sooner than they would be. Like if you get them in March, you've got, especially ours start inside. So they start out in the house, all 100 of them. And it doesn't take very long before I have had enough and it's time for them to go outside. So they have a separate area that they go for a while, and then they go down to the barn where they live. And, but that's definitely something to consider too. Where are you going to be keeping them in their brooding phase before they can just be free to be in their regular area?
Right. So you have to plan for, there's a big difference in that first 6 weeks of layers. And in fact, the first 3 weeks, they're going to need double the space within 3 weeks. Okay. So you can just start out big. If you have 6 chicks, and let's say, rather than using a small tote from Fred Meyer, use the medium-sized tote, and you have 6 chicks, that's good. That's going to take you all the way through 6 weeks. They're going to jump out of it, by the way. So you've got to come up with a little screen to put on top. But by 6 weeks, they'll be able to jump out and they'll be running around the house. But that's assuming you're doing them in the house. But if you're doing 25, then you're going to need 2 to 3 totes. If you're going to do 50 or 100, it's better to just go get, what I always used for years was, I would go and get refrigerator boxes, or boxes that they ship furniture and couches and stuff. Bailey's outlet store over here in Wasilla, they've got a big dumpster out back, and they'll let you dive in the dumpster and pull out those boxes.
Very good.
And or if you're in Anchorage or some of those places, any of the furniture stores, Lowe's, Home Depot, they'll give you their refrigerator boxes. Just line it up in advance, and they'll do that. And you can successfully do 50 chicks out to 6 weeks in a refrigerator box. U-Haul. Yeah, if you don't want to go hunting at the other stores, you can just go straight to U-Haul, and they have some large, like the boxes that they use for your wardrobe, hanging all your clothes in. It actually comes with a metal bar to do that. Just throw away the metal bar, and you can set that up on its side, and it works really well.
Nice. Okay. So choosing egg layers is a little different than, because as far as timing, because you have a full 6 weeks. I can't imagine keeping meat chickens in an enclosed area for 6 weeks. The stink would run you out, right?
Yeah, at 6 weeks, you're done if they're Cornish cross.
That's true.
That's a 4-pound chicken at that point. And and you're halfway there on a Freedom Ranger. So
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So, what are some necessities? You talked about, we talked about a chick brooder, and is that, do you feel like that's pretty much it? They need a place to, a safe place where they're protected. They need a light, a heat. They need food and water and some, bedding. Is that pretty much it as far as necessities go?
It is. And let me just show you, like, if you go to my website, to the FAQ area, it talks about using marbles in your feeders to keep the baby chicks from drowning and things like that, because a chick will walk up to the water, and then the other 10 chicks behind it push it into the water and step on it. And if you have baby chicks, they just don't have manners.
No.
And so I brought one of these for our discussion, for example, but this is what's called a quail water. Sorry, it's a little dirty, but you notice how it has that a real narrow rim on it
Mhm.
like that, and it's kind of a hockey puck. And I'll have these on my website, and you can order them from me. And they're only a couple dollars, but you screw a pint-sized jar on this quail water, and your chicks never can drown in this. And so that's definitely something to get, and you don't have to mess with trying to find marbles at the last minute and things like that, and keeping the marbles washed and all that kind of thing. And so, yeah, it gets nasty pretty quick. So just use the quail waters. And
And they're not very
and
clean animals, that's for sure. They don't keep themselves clean. That's our job.
no, but what I do is I have a, when they're in the, I use the quail waters even in the big brooders that have a watering system, because it's easier for the babies to get going and get hydrated. And it's important to make it, especially in that first 48 hours, it's critical that you make their food and their water convenient for them to get to, so that way they get the very, very best start possible. Let me talk just a minute, for mainly for people who aren't buying chicks from me. If you're getting them through the Postal Service contracts with Federal Express to transport all of their chicks. Okay, almost 100% of the chicks that get transported through the U.S. Postal Service are go through Federal Express. Well, what that means is that your chick, whether it's hatched in California or Florida or Ohio or wherever, they all go to Memphis, Tennessee, where Federal Express has its central hub for sorting. And so all the boxes go there. The chicks all go into one big place, and then they get sorted from there and then go out to their respective places. There are a few exceptions to that, but that's what happens. So what happens is rather than getting the chicks next day, because I air freight all my chicks in, and so let me just back up. A baby chick, the biology that makes it possible for us to ship baby chicks like that is that, if you think about it, when a mother's sitting on a nest of eggs, the eggs don't hatch all at the same time, right? It happens over several days. Well, she can't, she's going to stay on that nest, protecting those chicks and giving them heat and warmth the entire time. So the first one that hatches is going to be a lot hungrier than the one that hatches, and the ones that hatch 3 days later. Well, what they have is they have this yolk sac inside, and it takes 21 days for the for the chick to develop in the egg and to hatch. Well, at day 19, the chick inside the shell starts to draw that yolk sac in through their navel. And if you look on their tummies, they actually do have a little navel there that usually is closed. Sometimes it doesn't close, but that yolk sac will last 3, 4, even 5 days and keep that chick alive, so that it can survive that waiting period and that travel time. Well, a lot of times it's taking 4 days minimum for those chicks to get to Alaska. And so when they get here, the chicks, you can hear them all the way at the back of the post office, right?
Yep.
And people will get my chicks, will come to, Alaska Mill and Feed or wherever I'm delivering, and they'll look at the box and they'll say, "Are they okay?" And I'll open the box and say, "Yeah, they're just fine." They go, "Well, they're not making any noise, and I said, "Yeah, that's because they're not hungry yet. They're not hungry or thirsty. They're only 24 hours old. But when they're 3, 4, 5 days old, they're going crazy."
Yeah.
And so, and it is statistically um, dependable. I can tell you that if a chick goes 4 days from hatch to hatch to when you get it with no food, by the night of the fourth day, you're going to have a 25% loss rate. If you procrastinate and wait until day 5, just noon on day 5, you're going to have a 50 to 75% loss rate
Oh,
because they're starting to experience organ failure from because of dehydration and lack of food. So what you want to do if you're getting those chicks from these other sources, my chicks, you don't have to give them sugar or electrolytes, unless I tell you to. Like if a flight was delayed or something like that, then I'll definitely speak up and say you might want to give them some extra boost here. But what I do is I just this costs anywhere from $5 to $9 depending on where you get it, and I will have this on available to my customers. But I just get this big bag of electrolytes, and this will last, the average person forever. But I will mix this 50-50 with sugar, and in a pint of water, it'll be about two teaspoons of each in warm water, and mix it all up. And then I'll put that into I'll use that as their water when I first get them, if they're chicks that have been made a really, really long trip like that.
okay.
And so, or if I have chicks that for some reason, they're failing to thrive, and every now and then something happens, they'll get chilled on the airplane, they'll get put in a place that either chills them or overheats them, and I'll use that to give them a boost.
Okay. Well, I think that's good advice to have. And that kind of leads to my next question. So what medications should or what, not even necessarily medications, supplements, whatever, what should a person just have on hand? So you're not, I see posts all the time. Does anyone have such and such? My chicken has, I don't know, chicken stuff, but what are some things to just have on hand so you're not having to worry about that?
Sure. So chickens will peck at anything that is red and anything that is shiny. So if another chicken in your group gets a wound of some sort, or if when they are laying their first eggs, a lot of times there will be a little bit of bleeding, and the other chickens will peck at that, and they will actually, in many cases, they will kill the other chicken pretty quickly. So you want to have your awareness up of where they're at in their life cycle, and you want to be watching your other chickens for all your chickens for any kinds of wounds. So there's 2 things that I use for wound care and wound coverings. Number 1 is a thing called Blue Coat, and I'll have that on the website as well. It's a spray bottle. There's a pump and there's an aerosol. You always want to use it with gloves on, not because it'll hurt you, but because it'll stain your hands and it won't go away for days.
Emphasis
But
on blue in the name Blue Coat. It does stain everything.
it's bad. And so, yeah. And if you overspray onto a wall or something you didn't want to get Blue Coat on, it's too bad. It's blue now. So anyway, yeah, Blue Coat is a great product to have. Just spray it on any kind of wound, and it tastes bad, and it smells bad to the chickens, and so they'll leave that chicken alone, and they won't peck that wound. It's great to use on if you have roosters where you're having to remove their spurs when you get roosters that are 2, 3, 4 years old and they've got those giant spurs. When you pull those off, those can get a fungal infection. So always have Blue Coat handy to spray those with. The other, probably my second choice for wound care is No-Pec. It just comes in that brown squeeze bottle. It's kind of an ointment, and that seems to work really well. That's good for your baby chicks too if they've got issues. with getting pecked. So those are, you know, that that's the wound care side of it. Here in Alaska, we don't have a lot of the parasites that they do in down south. That's one of the nice things about living here in Alaska. However, that being said, we do, because our chickens spend a lot of time in confinement in the wintertime, lice and mites can definitely be an issue. And so learning the protocols for how to check for lice and check for mites and identify that there's an infection going on. And then the thing that I use, of course, your number one preventive for that is having a good dust bath, and wood ash with some sand and a little bit, not a lot, just a little bit of diatomaceous earth for your chickens to use for a dust bath. Is that will prevent 99% of your problem if you have that. Out in my big chicken house where, Polaris Farm eggs are produced, I've got kiddie pools that have that stuff in it. And the chickens go in there and do their dust baths. And so, those blue kind of kiddie pools that they sell for $10 at Walmart. And then if you do end up with an infection of those of mites or lice, here's the product, ivermectin, and you put 3 drops of that on the back of your chicken's neck, and then wait 14 days, and because there will be another egg hatch of the lice, and then do it again in 14 days, and that plus doing a thorough job of cleaning your coop and spreading diatomaceous earth into places where there's cracks and other places where they can hide and lay eggs, and that'll bring it under control. But it's and then spring cleaning is super important to do with good detergent and other things like that to get your coop clean and get all the parasites and stuff out.
And I have to say, I think that's probably like in this time of year, we've got about 2 weeks, and pretty soon the sun will be streaming through my windows. And as soon as it does that, I'll be able to see all the residue in my windows from, and I love the cleaning of the windows with the sun streaming through. But right behind that is cleaning the chicken coop. It's kind of a yucky job in the beginning, but it feels so good to get it cleaned up. And you can just imagine how it's just all fresh. And, we tend to go with more of a deep bedding method, and it can get a little aromatic in the spring, and just to get that all cleaned out and have it nice and just dry and fresh and know that it's clean. It just feels so good. It feels almost as good as my clean windows.
Well, and you've probably learned that, sorry, I keep getting text messages and I'm flipping them away, but you probably learned yourself, but just for those that are listening and wondering, don't use straw or hay in your coop, because what it does is over that winter, if you're using a deep litter method, it acts like rebar to just tie the whole thing together, and it's a big mess to try and untangle and chop through all that. It just stick with wood shavings. And hemp is great. I've seen people use hemp. Oh, back to parasites. Our most common parasite that we get and sickness that we get with chickens here in Alaska is coccidiosis. And it is endemic to Alaska soil. There's no way that your chickens are not going to get exposed to it. It's just going to happen. But chickens have a super robust immune system, and if they are slowly exposed to it, just normal life exposure, especially as baby chicks running around the yard, you'll never see any symptoms of it. because they just develop an immunity to it, and it's never a problem. When it becomes a problem is when they're in a more dense situation and they have more exposure to it, and it's getting in their food and getting in their waters. That's when you start seeing the blood in the stools and the watery stools and other things like that. And it usually, if your chicken isn't acting sick, then it's probably going to go away. It'll last about 10 days and then it'll go away. But if your chicken is actually kind of in a stupor, where they're inactive and they're just kind of just sitting there all ruffled up and they've got their neck retracted, and they just look sick and inactive like that, that's when they're starting to get into trouble. And so you'll want to treat that with a product called Corid. And I gave my last bottle away, otherwise I'd show you the product. It comes in a liquid and it comes in a powder. And Corid is pretty fast acting. Nice thing about Corid is you don't have to do, it doesn't have a withdrawal period for your eggs. So even if your chickens are on Corid, you don't have to throw away the eggs. With ivermectin that you use for the lice and things like that, you do need to do a 2 week withdrawal period on that. So you end up throwing away a month's worth of eggs with that because you're going to do 2 treatments.
Oh man, that's good to know. So now you've got your chicks at home now, and now what are some things beside, I mean, you've kind of described like the lice and things like that, but what are some things specific to chicks that you need to be looking for?
Number one is temperature. So if they're, you can tell if your chicks are doing well just by listening to them, and they will make that little pee-pee happy chick sound and all that. But if they're cold, if they're hot, if they're, whatever it is that's bothering them, they're going to sound off. And so it's easy to tell if your chicks are under stress, because just from the sound. And so you go and take a look at them, and if they're clustered under the light, then they're too cold, and it's either because their feet are cold underneath, or the light needs to come down a little lower, or there's a draft sometimes. If they're clustered, it's too hot, you're gonna have to lift the light. If they're pushed out against the edges of their brooder, then the light needs to be lowered. So that's the main thing. And then keeping track of, keeping their water clean, keeping their feed clean. You want to use a good feed that's very digestible. On my website, I recommend Alaska Millen Feed Chick Starter, and kind of wait until they're at least 6 weeks old before you transition them to any of the other organic feeds or no corn, no soy, because those are, not as digestible.
Okay.
In my experience. So that's what I find that they like the best.
Okay. And are there any other like sicknesses or anything specific to chicks to be watching for them? I'm thinking of like the pasty butt thing and stuff.
Oh, yeah, pasty butt. That is all you have to do is just grab the little chick, and if it's not attached too tightly, you can usually just pick it off, or you can just apply some warm water to their rear end, and it'll, just be patient, and it'll kind of melt off as you moisten it. And the cause of that, in my experience, is drafts. If they get exposed and chilled to cold, then you'll see a percentage of your chicks get pasty butt. And and I don't know that that's scientific or whatever. That's just my observation. And then some people, I do not recommend using any kind of apple cider vinegar or anything like that, because the chicks, and they just don't like the acidy flavor, and what you want them to do is hydrate very aggressively in that first 48 hours.
Okay.
So um yeah, that's yeah, you want the water to taste good.
Okay, I think that's good advice. So now let's just jump forward. I just have a couple more questions. Let's just jump forward to now they're grown. It's almost time to start laying. At what point at what age do layers typically start laying? And are there things that you can do to jumpstart their laying, or do you just have to wait patiently?
So nutrition, that's what's going to drive that. So feed them chick starter for the first 6 weeks. On week 7 to week 16, feed them pullet grower. Okay. And in fact, you can use broiler grower for them in that period as well, either one. And then but then when they hit week 16, their ovaries are going to turn on, and they're going to start forming up eggs. And if you were to dissect those chickens, you would actually see these little tiny yellow specks in their oviduct, and it looks like a chain of pearls, and they get bigger as they go, and all the way until you have a full egg. And there'll be 15 or 20 of those things in there maturing. And so they need minerals, they need protein, they need a lot of stuff. So at 16 weeks, I transition my chickens over to 20% layer, and I start with crumbles, and then I transition that by mixing it to pellets.
Okay.
And I find I get less waste with pellets, and the chickens seem to like the pellets better because it's just a more dense form of feed. But yeah, once you do that, if you have Novagens, you're going to start getting the little proto eggs at age, at about 18, 19 weeks, and then the full size eggs by 22 weeks. If they're regular non-production type chickens, then it's going to be a full 24 weeks before you see eggs.
Okay. And what about their housing needs, especially in the winter? Like, do they require special? Let's talk about how protection from wind, light, all those heat, all those things.
Right. So chickens are even your large varieties like Rhode Island Reds and Barred Rocks and Black Australorps that have big combs, they are pretty cold hardy, and uh, they can go down into the 20s without getting frostbite on their combs. There's a few things you can do, but let's just talk about their housing. The important thing it's just like us. If our clothes are damp or humid, then they don't insulate as well, and we're cold even when it's 35 degrees.
Yeah.
Okay. But if our clothes are dry and fluffy and all that, and there's no draft, we can be out there in -10 and be pretty and still be pretty warm. And it's the same for the chickens. They need to have a dry environment that has plenty of fresh air, and that's what chickens need to stay warm. They need regular food, and they need liquid water. If their water's freezing up all the time, it doesn't matter how much food they eat, they can't metabolize it without having enough water. So and a chicken has a body temperature of 107 degrees. And so if you've sized your coop properly, your chickens' bodies will actually provide enough heat inside of an insulated but well ventilated coop to actually keep them warm. And I have my older coop out here that it's sized for 100 chickens, and 100 chickens can be in there and in the wintertime, and it can get down to zero, and they generate enough body heat that it keeps their water from freezing, but
Wow.
yet it's still well ventilated. Now, when the wind blows, which right never happens around here, right? But when the wind blows, I do have to actively go out there and shut down the ventilation because they'll get chilled and the water will freeze. And the other thing to keeping your chickens laying in the wintertime is light. They need 16 hours of light. And so I have my lights on a timer, and they turn on at 6 a.m., they turn back off at 10 a.m., they turn back on at 4 p.m., and they stay on till midnight. And that's the schedule. I'm just starting to back the schedule down now. But if you were to if I were to walk you out, I'm looking out the window right now, and if I was to walk you out there, you would actually see steam coming out of the vents of my big laying house out there, because because of the ventilation system. It brings air in through convection, and then the vents at the top are there to let all that moist warm air out. And it by the process of convection, it just does that all the time. It's about 5 or 10 below right now outside, and so I do have heaters on in there, but I turn my heaters off when it's about 25 degrees, because everybody just is, there's almost 800 chickens out there now, and so it's just everybody creates enough heat to keep it warm.
Well, that makes a lot of sense, actually. And using, it's a whole lot cheaper if you can use their body heat than having to have heaters out there, right? And
Yeah.
safer for
Yeah.
sure. So, I think we've covered most of it. I guess my last question is, do you have just for no reason other than it's just the breed that you like, do you have a favorite laying breed and why?
Hmm. Well, from an economic perspective, the Novagen brown and the Novagen white. One lays brown eggs, one lays white eggs. So if you see my packages of chickens or eggs in the stores, the white eggs are coming from Novagen whites. And then um, but as for favorite breeds, just as pets and ones that I just bring me joy to be around, um, I like the blue sapphires. The blue sapphire roosters are really spectacular animals. They're not only well behaved and beautiful, majestic birds, but they're very smart. And I had I had one particular rooster that was I think it was a color pack rooster, and he was a pill. He wanted to go running around challenging everybody. But when my youngest son would go out in the yard, the my blue sapphire rooster would stand between him and the other rooster and protect him.
For heaven's sake.
And even when he was collecting the eggs, he's bent over, collecting the eggs and stuff, that blue sapphire would stand behind him and keep the other one from coming in and, clawing him. And so I have a real soft spot for those. I love Rhode Island Reds. I love Black Australorps. I love Buff Orpingtons. Um, those are all great pets. to have. This year I just tried Delawares for the first time. Delawares and uh, what's that one? New Hampshire Reds. And this last year, and those are amazingly docile, well-behaved birds that are really friendly. And so I have both males and females of those now that are completely mature and have joined the big flock, and they're just great birds,
Okay.
solid, healthy, and friendly. And I can walk right up to them and pet them or pick them up, and they're great.
That's good to know, especially like for a backyard homestead. We have had many roosters in our time. The nicest roosters we've had were all of our Rhode Island Reds. We've not had a single aggressive Rhode Island Red rooster, but we've had a couple that they just my husband tends to be a little bit more assertive to them.
Mhm.
So they'll back off from him. And so he won't necessarily understand until he sees them come after one of my little ones. And so yeah, some have not been, they didn't make the cut, but that's good to know. I have one last question that I completely forgot, but it was an issue that I saw this year and I thought I would ask. Um,
Sure.
the we in a group that I'm in, just like a homesteading group that I'm in on Facebook, there was a plethora of people who grew their own turkeys this year. It must have been a major year for growing turkeys, which is
Right.
fine. But there were so many 30 and 40 and 50-pound turkeys because they got their turkeys way too early and they didn't want to cull them and freeze them and thaw them back out. They wanted like the genuinely fresh turkey. So my question to you is, if a person wants a Thanksgiving turkey, when should they have that turkey at their house and not end up with a monster that's going to feed either all of Wasilla or them for the next 6 months?
Right. So the answer to that is as late in June as possible.
Okay.
And my last turkey delivery, I believe, is the 18th of June this year. It's actually, I was hoping I would have them on the very last week of June, but my main turkey supplier is cutting it off then. And so, but yeah, that. And now you can free range and feed restrict your turkeys.
Yeah.
So and so monitoring how much food, just limit their food. They should only get a certain amount of feed per day, and put that much in the feeder and no more, and then make them free range. And they're great lawn mowers, so they'll go out and eat everything else that's green, and they prefer that. And and it takes about 16 weeks to get a 20-pound turkey on the males, and 16 weeks to get 14, 15-pound turkey for the females.
Okay. Okay. That's an excellent answer. Don, I've really appreciated having you. Is there anything you wanted to add before we go, or?
Um, you know, food security. I had a meeting a short while ago with Brian Scoresby, the director of agriculture here, and I said 96% of our food is imported, and he corrected me. He says no, now it's about 98% and
Oh,
getting
the wrong
worse.
way.
It's going the wrong way, and food security is everyone's job. Just to give you one little statistic, since your listeners are going to be we're talking about egg production. Alaska imports 17 million dozen packs of eggs. Well, Alaskans consume 17 million dozen eggs per year. Sometimes it's in flats, sometimes it's in single dozen packs. But we go through 17 million dozen eggs per year in Alaska. Okay. My little flock out here, which is by Alaska standards a big flock, I'm producing about 300 per week. So, what's that? 15,000 dozen a year. Um, I'm not even 1%, and so um, there is so much opportunity out there, and for people to produce food for their local area. And
Mm.
I please come out and compete in the egg market with me. People want local eggs. If you have you can have free eggs for your family. A flock of 25 or 30 chickens eats one bag of feed a week, but you can sell those eggs for $4 a dozen to your coworkers and things like that. And and it will completely cover your feed bill. And I had 6 kids. They're all raised and gone now, um, but they had all the eggs that they could eat, and I had athletes for sons. I have 5 sons and 1 daughter, and they were all athletes, big protein need, and they had all the eggs that they could possibly eat. Plus, I was able to pay for the feed, by selling to my coworkers at work at $4 a dozen, and everyone had great eggs, and we got eggs for free. So, and the kids did the work. So there's no downside to having a backyard chicken flock, and there's no downside to doing it a little bigger, because you can end up having a net cost of zero, and your kids get a work ethic of doing a chore every day that needs to be done.
That's right. And they learn to take care of animals, and they learn, animal husbandry. They learn, there's so many lessons to be learned for kids. Well, Don, I have appreciated having you on here. This has been good information, and we did kind of dabble with meat chickens too, which was fun, but I appreciate it. And so the last thing I wanted to say is that Don is actually going to be, we're setting him up with his very own booth at the Alaska Homestead Expo, and he's agreed to do some chicken butchering demonstrations as well. So he'll be there all day, both days, or I believe all day, both days, and he'll be there to answer any questions. He's going to do some talks about egg layers, and I don't remember exactly what all talks you're doing, but I know that you said that you were going to do a couple of, like chicken culling, butchering, the whole process demonstrations. And so if you're curious how that works, or if you are a little squeamish or nervous, this will be a great thing. So definitely we want you to come to the expo too. And Don, thank you for agreeing to come. And he said he was going to bring some chickens along, so who knows, it'll be a surprise. Here's fun.
I just like here at my farm, I train people here that want to come out, and basically you trade me a day of labor, and I teach you how to do everything.
Yeah.
And so that's what I'll do there at your expo. It'll be completely hands-on, and anybody who wants to jump in, they can jump in and do everything. If they just want to stand back and watch, that's fine too, and really understand that, and how to do it, with food safety in mind. It's important to have good hygiene when you're doing all this.
Oh man, it is. And it just knowing that it's your very own food that's in the freezer feels good. So Don, I've appreciated having you. Thank you for being on the show, and we'll talk to you in a month or so about meat chickens. Sound good?
Sounds great. Thanks a lot.
All right. Thank you.